Initiating system one. System one loaded.
We are one. We are a legion. Break the system of corruption. Fight with your mind and eyes. Freedom. Justice. Liberty. Hope. Love. Truth. Anonymous.
Greetings Instagram. We are in Anonymous, Pennsylvania. Over the last few days I've been sitting back watching everyone fight about free speech, the flag, the veterans, celebrities, blah blah blah. I'm listening and reading a lot of different people's stance on these topics and I can't help but to slap my palm to my forehead. I ask myself over and over again, how do we keep falling for the same old trick over and over again? What trick, you ask? Let's back up to the early 1600s. This was a time where racism didn't exist. People didn't call themselves black or white. Back then it was all regional. We are Irish, we are Greek, or we are African and so on. Fast forward to the colonization of what would become the United States of America. This is about 1640. You basically had two groups of people. There were the rich and the workers. There were a few slaves, but most people were indentured servants or free labor. After years of being worked like animals, the workers started to realize that we all have one thing in common. We are getting our butts kicked by these elites in this new land. So they did what any oppressed group would do, and they banded together and started rebellions. They pillaged, raided, and even killed. The rich knew that there was only two ways to keep people from rising against you. You either have to kill everyone. But if you do that, who's going to do your labor? So you can't do that. The only other thing you can do is figure out a way to divide them. So they came up with a plan to do that. They agreed to give people of European descent certain privileges. Privileges like a few acres of land, letting them vote on certain issues, and allowed them to participate in court and judicial proceeding. They could sue people and stuff, but the most impactful thing they did was put them in charge of the slaves and other workers. This move effectively stopped the rebellions immediately. Divide and conquer. Now the elite were very smart, because they did nothing to change the economic situations of these people. You're still poor as hell. But because they were allowed to sit at the same table as the elites, they turned on the very same folks they were fighting alongside a week prior. I have to repeat this part. Their economic situation had not changed at all. But the illusion of inclusion changed their mindset. They put this in place hundreds of years ago and it still runs to perfection to this day. It's 2019 and the elites that run this country divide and conquer us, seemingly, at will. We have men vs women, black vs white, gay vs straight, north vs south, Democrat vs Republican, standing for the flag vs not standing, Muslims vs everybody. It's ridiculous. When you wake up in the morning, you're mad at 4 different groups of people before you leave the house, and if you really actually thought about it, you probably don't really know why. If you sit and look at it, we are busy with this infighting, that we don't even catch what they're doing to us. Our healthcare is unaffordable. The utilities prices in this country are the highest of any developed nation. Our politicians are corrupt as heck. These police officers are out of control. The whole judicial system is anything but judicial. Student loans, mortgage prices, insurance, and simple entertainment. A trip to Disney World is several $1,000s. The movies can cost you $100. Bowling $100. We're being robbed and economically subdued by these corporations and the elites, just like our forefathers were in the 1600s. If we would stop letting them do this to us, where could we be? If we got together and fought against these systems that have been put in place instead of fighting about a dang flag, where could we be? Kneels for the flag affects your life 0%. Students affected. Who chooses to get an abortion affects your life 0%. High percentages on credit cards affected. Two people of the same sex want to get married affects your life 0%. You losing your healthcare affects it. When are we going to wake up and realize that we are being played? Divide and conquer is the game and we are losing. The game doesn't care about your age, your race, your sexuality, none of that. As long as you stay broke, poor, fighting with the same people that you should be linking arms with, we'll continue to keep getting our butts kicked by these folks. As the public awakens to the realities of the deep state and the elite, 1%, pension for drinking the adrenalized blood of children. As the public grows increasingly aware of the neo-Nazi nature of both the CIA and NASA and their investments in horrific mind control technologies, both direct and remote, as the public begins to understand that both central banking and religions are controlling authorities. Divide and conquer. It's one of the oldest military strategies in the books, and it's proven to be the police state's most effective weapon for maintaining the status quo. How do you conquer a nation? Distract them with football games, political circuses and Black Friday sales. Keep them focused on their differences: economic, religious, environmental, political, racial, so they can never agree on anything. And then, when they are so divided that they are incapable of joining forces against a common threat, start picking them off one by one. Militarized police, riot and camouflage gear, armored vehicles, mass arrests, pepper spray, tear gas, batons, strip searches, drones, less than lethal weapons unleashed with deadly force, rubber bullets, water cannons, concussion grenades, arrests of journalists, intimidation tactics, brute force. This is what martial law looks like when a government disregards constitutional freedoms and imposes its will through military force. Only this is martial law without any government body having to declare it. This is martial law packaged as law and order and sold to the public as necessary for keeping the peace. These overreaching, heavy-handed lessons in how to rule by force have become standard operating procedure for a government that communicates with its citizenry primarily through the language of brutality, intimidation, and fear. What Americans have failed to comprehend is that the police state doesn't differentiate, in the eyes of the government, whether that government is helmed by Barack Obama or Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. There is no difference between Republicans and Democrats, between blacks and whites, and every shade in the middle, between Native Americans and a nation of immigrants, no matter how long we've been here, between the lower class and the middle and upper classes, between religious and non-religious Americans, between those who march in lockstep with the police state and those who oppose its tactics. What the government has figured out is that, as long as its oppression is focused on one particular group at a time in a city, blacks, gun-toting ranchers, environmental activists, etc., there will be no outcry from the public at large. The liberal left will not speak up for the conservative right. The right wing will not speak up for the left wing. The economic elite will not speak up for the economically disadvantaged, and vice versa. The ranchers will not speak up for the environmentalists, and the environmentalists will not speak up for the ranchers. The Democrats will not criticize endless wars, drone killings, militarized police, private prisons, etc., when sanctioned by their candidate. Same goes for the Republicans. Are you starting to get the picture? What we are dealing with is a full-blown case of national hypocrisy. For too long now, the American people have allowed their personal prejudices and politics to cloud their judgment and render them incapable of seeing that the treatment being doled out by the government's lethal enforcers has remained consistent, no matter the threat. The government's oppressive tactics have not changed. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Authoritarian regimes begin with incremental steps. Overcriminalization, surveillance of innocent citizens, imprisonment for non-violent victimless crimes, etc. Slowly, bit by bit, the citizenry finds its freedoms being curtailed and undermined for the sake of national security. So if this isn't your fight, if you believe that authority is more important than liberty, if you don't agree with a particular group's position on an issue, and by your silence tacitly support the treatment meted out to them, if you think you're a better citizen or a more patriotic American, if you want to play it safe, and if don't want to risk getting shot, tased, pepper sprayed, struck with a baton, thrown to the ground, arrested and or labeled an extremist, then by all means, remain silent. Stand down. Cower in the face of the police. Turn your eyes away from injustice. Find any excuse to suggest that the so-called victims of the police state deserved what they got. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget.